My name is Andy, and I film the videos at the Imperfects. I'm the son of English immigrants, and I am grateful to call Australia home. We at the Imperfects acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast was recorded, and extend our respects to their elders past and present. I am inspired by the strength and endurance of the world's oldest living culture, and we draw on and pay homage to their traditions of story when we share stories on our podcast.
Well, would you polish my shoes, Governor? It's time for the Academy of Imperfection, where experts in their field share their wisdom on the subject of imperfection. Today, to help some of us with one of life's more agonizing decisions, it's Parenthood Clarity Mentor, Anne Davidman.
Do you wish you wanted to be a dad more than you do? Do you want to be a dad?
Yes.
Do you want to live a child-free life and have it be okay?
Yes.
If you really knew what was right for you, can you see yourself down either path?
Yes.
So, unsheath your quills and join students Hugh, Ryan, and Josh for the Academy of Imperfection.
Well, welcome to the Academy of Imperfection.
Thank you.
Hugh, Josh.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Thanks, Ryan.
it's good. It's good. I love being in here. Feels important, doesn't it?
Easily my favourite academy that I go to.
Oh yeah,
This one.
same.
Yeah.
Same. Other than Police Academy, Police Academy is quite fun too. But
That's
this
a
is
good one.
different.
Yeah.
Well, this is probably our first. I think you'd probably call it a companion episode. You could call it a companion episode.
I don't know what you mean.
Let me explain.
Okay.
So a companion episode is essentially, well, there is no such thing as a companion episode. But what I'm basically saying is that we did an episode at the start of the year called To Breed or Not to Breed,
Yes.
where I talked about my sort of like indecision and anxiety really around whether I should have, well, whether my partner and I should have children or not, or at least try to have children or not. And that we had like such an enormous response from
turns
people.
out you are not the only person
Yes.
who's going through this. There's a lot of people.
There's a lot of people. So then we actually a few of our listeners actually recommended our guest and recommended that we read the work of our guest, and so we did. And we got in contact and we found a woman called Anne Davidman.
Who is, as far as I can tell, the world leading expert on whether or not to have kids, which is a great thing to be an expert on.
Oh, God, yes, absolutely. So Hugh, who is Anne Davidman?
Anne Davidman is someone who's currently sitting there very patiently waiting to be introduced and is too polite to tell us to stop talking. But
She's thinking, oh, this is why it's called the Imperfects.
and welcome to the podcast. It's so lovely to meet you.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
Are you in San Francisco at the moment? Is that right?
I'm actually in the San Francisco Bay Area, east of San Francisco in Walnut Creek.
Oh, Walnut
Beautiful.
Creek sounds like a lovely place. I don't know it. Is it a lovely place?
It's very lovely.
Yeah.
Have lots of walnuts at the creek?
This time of year, everything is starting to turn green. So
Beautiful.
Sorry to kick off with the really tough questions.
I'm ready for anything.
Well, I might just give you a little bit more of a in-depth introduction, if that's okay with you, Anne. So Anne Davidman is a Parenthood Clarity Mentor, licensed marriage and family therapist and author, and she's been helping people gain clarity on deciding whether or not to have children for 30 years.
Is that how long it takes to decide? Wow. Okay.
Her work has since been featured in countless publications, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, ABC, Vox, and many more. I thought Vox, we've got a newspaper here which has a segment called Vox Pop, and I thought that's what it was. I was like, I don't know if we put that in her bio, but Vox is, I've just learned Vox is something else.
It's a different
it's
website.
much bigger. It's much bigger than a Vox Pop in our local newspaper.
Yep.
And it's so exciting to have you here. And we had, in all seriousness, we had such an enormous response to the episode where Ryan spoke very openly, very, very vulnerably about the decision that lies ahead of himself and Jam, his partner, and now to be chatting to you. No pressure, but I'm hoping by the end of this, Ryan can make a decision on whether or not he's going to have kids.
Yeah, I was thinking, I hope he's not expecting to do a 12-week course in an hour, but we'll see what we can do.
No. This is purely, I mean, I think if, like I spoke about my own experience, but I think what would be really helpful for the actual greater population is just general advice for everyone else who's in the same boat.
I loved that episode, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
It's rare that someone's going to talk about this with such consciousness and care. And someone said, "Are you afraid? If you're going to be a good father or not?" And you had said, "Well, that's not my concern. I know I'd be a good enough father, or I'd be a good father. That wasn't the issue for you."
I try my best, yeah.
And it was just refreshing to hear men talk about it. There's almost zero permission for anybody to talk about it, especially women, because people are judged so harshly for not knowing. And I can get into that later, why I think that's the case. I've been doing this work for 30 years, and I'm a woman, it's a woman's issue. Our target audience was women, but shortly after that, we started to create a program for men, which is basically the same course, but men don't feel like they have permission to think about this because, especially in heterosexual relationships, they feel like, they'll do whatever their partner wants. I do think that's changing, but I just really enjoyed your ability to be honest from this very authentic, grounded place. But you did make a comment about Jam. Is that her name?
Jam, yeah.
Jam. You said, well, I guess, if she really wants children, I'll go along with that. And you said that on one hand, and on the other hand, I don't know who it was. One of you said, I think the starting point should be no, and then you look at it. But my immediate thought was, well, why? You also get to think about what's right for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just because someone else is clear. I mean, I really think in a couple, each person has to go to their own corner and get really clear on what they want, because what they want has nothing to do with the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
You involve the other person when you're talking about making a decision. But what you want, why, what drives it from the inside out, so you're not in reaction to your partner or society, that's really important to know.
I think that's a really good thing to think about, and I think part of my issue is that even just me on my own, well, clearly me on my own, I don't know, and I've thought so deeply about it, and I just haven't yet reached the right answer for me that I think is right. So I think that's why probably the work you're doing and have been doing for so long, and your book and everything you speak about and write about is to help individuals as opposed to couples. Is that right? It's to help an individual figure out what they want. Yeah.
Yeah, and couples reach out to me. Mostly individuals reach out to me who are coupled, but sometimes a couple will reach out to me, and I will let them know that I don't treat this as a couple's issue. That you each have to get clear on your own. So you're not trying to convince the other of what you want, but what drives it from the inside out. And you just said, I don't know. And do you have any idea why you don't know?
The things that I'm relatively confident that I'll have to sacrifice are things that I really, really love in my life. And some of those things it might be like freedom and just like freedom of choice on any given day to fill the day how I want to fill it. The other thing that I've thought about since recording that episode is while I really admire people who have the clarity to be able to choose what the next 10, 20 years of their life will look like, I have a lot of I really admire people who can choose that. But for me, I'm like, I guess I'm not ready to lock in the rest of my life yet. And I know it's not the rest of my life, but it feels like that. It feels like, am I really ready to, like, that's a lifestyle that I'm...
It is the rest of your life.
It pretty much is the rest of your life.
Well, it turns out that babies grow into young people, and then they grow into teenagers and young adults.
Got any research to prove that?
It's top secret. But what you're talking about, Ryan, is sort of where the problem lies, because you are trying to sort out what you want and what you're going to do about it at the same time. And that is what creates mental gridlock. You can't think your way out of that. All you can do is go around and around. So you don't want to, commit to, having a baby for 30 years.
Yeah.
But you don't, all of those, the things that you mentioned, they're not part of what you want. They're part of what you're going to do about what you want. And so first you have to sort out, do you want to be a parent, a father? Do you want to raise a child? From the inside out, like, what's your heart's desire about it? And you don't know, and that's fine. It's okay that you don't know.
Because I just don't know. Like, I don't know if it's normal for people. I'll just say for men, because I am one. But is it normal? Well, I could ask you guys. Did you, when you've always like looked into your future, do you just see yourself as a dad? Is that just what you see? Because when I look into my future, I do not see that. It just feels like I'd be playing a character.
Yeah, right.
Like it doesn't feel
right,
like
but how
me.
Right, because it's not, you haven't done it.
Yeah, but I and maybe I'm wrong, but my perception is that people who are so sure that they want to have children and start a family, my perception is their entire life they imagine themselves as parents when they're older.
Right, and then you have to ask, where does that certainty come from? Because many people that are certain never questioned their certainty, because we live in a pronatalist society. Everybody is fed the message, you should want children and you should have children.
Yes.
And some people don't question that.
Yeah, I love that. There's something that you wrote when you wrote to us in response to listening to the To Breed or Not to Breed episode. You said the people who are uncertain about this are the lucky ones, because they have the opportunity to actually explore why they're uncertain about it and what their obstacle is that they have to overcome. Can you talk more about that? Because I think that was really interesting.
Yeah, I think, so many people who feel ambivalent or can't decide, they carry so much shame and judgment. And so they feel bad about themselves. So I like to let them know that actually the upside to ambivalence or the upside to certainty is that it forces you around this issue. It's actually this issue forces you to stop in your tracks and question and sort out what you want for yourself. And so if you have to do that, then, especially for those who are desperately want to have the answer, you have to look at, why don't I know? What is in the way of me not knowing what I want? Why don't I? It looks like everyone else knows. Why don't I know?
Yeah.
And so in that exploration, you're really looking at what are the beliefs, the unresolved issues that you carry that actually play in your unconscious all the time. And so going back to my point earlier, you know what you know, and that is what you can rehash over and over again. You need access to what you don't know, which are recordings that play in your unconscious. And that's what I help people uncover so that they can know themselves better. And so when people are uncertain, they're forced to discover what that is. Now, I have no doubt that people who say, I've always known what I wanted. I've always known I don't want children. I've always known I want to be a parent. Great. Have at it. They will go do that thing and be good at it or not good at it. They'll learn along the way. And that's fine. They're not tortured by the indecision. they may be tortured by parenting or by something else, but that's when they'll be forced to stop in their tracks and look at something. I just think that when someone stops in their tracks over this issue, the reason I think they're lucky is because, well, if they find me, they're lucky. Because
We are lucky.
Yeah.
then they actually get to learn something about themselves that they didn't know they didn't know. And that will make them a better parent if they choose parenthood. It will make their life more rich, more fulfilled, because they'll know themselves better if they choose a child-free life. Also, people who already have a child and are thinking about their second child also reach out to me. And it's really the same process.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I can imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I imagine that it's quite important. It becomes really important to try and do this before, I would imagine, before you have children, if there's any uncertainty at all, like the danger of bringing a child into the world whilst uncertain and then going through this process later is probably not ideal.
It's not. I think what's ideal is that no matter how certain you are, it's a good course to go through.
Yeah, because you're going to get more clarity over yourself regardless. Yeah.
Yeah. But I have had people go through the course who know they're going to be a father, but they're not thrilled about it. So the decision is made. Their partner is pregnant, and they've agreed. But they would like to feel more excited about it. So they will go through the course and discover what's in the way of the excitement, and then learn about themselves and see what's possible for them. I've had women who are pregnant in the course because the decision is made for them, but they want to feel better about the decision. And so that's not the order I recommend, but it's doable.
What do you think of I guess I'm thinking, I'll just say it from my own perspective, but I imagine there would be, because I'm someone who's always been certain and now have kids and very happy, but I would feel a bit of fear about doing the process because it might uncover an answer that I don't like. Or do you encounter people who are really resistant to do the process?
Well, they don't call me.
Yeah, I
So
guess
I
that's
don't know.
yeah. That's true.
But the truth is, people, by the time they find me, they've been up at 1 a.m. searching the internet. How do I figure this out? Because they already feel so much shame because they don't know. But they are afraid of what the outcome is because it could mean the end of their relationship. So people start out in a tremendous amount of fear. I mean, some people don't really care what the answer is. They just want to know. They just want to have a decision. But for some people, the stakes are high because it's the first time in their life they're finally in a healthy, wonderful, loving relationship, and their partner wants something, and they don't know what they want. And so, they don't know how it will end.
So what are some of the practical questions or things that Ryan could be doing right now to help him? You said to get them to access the things they don't know. What are some of the things? I know we don't have time for the course right now, but if it's possible,
right?
I'm thinking about listeners going, "Yep, I'm so interested. What are the things I should start doing now?"
Get the book. No,
well, definitely get the book. Absolutely.
I mean, part of it is, first you have to accept that you don't know. You have to accept that it's okay that you don't know. And there's nothing wrong with you that you don't know, because you have to get out of the mindset that there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. There's a good reason. Whatever the reason is that you don't know is a good reason. And you're not to be blamed for any struggles that contributed to you not knowing. That doesn't mean you're not accountable. You are accountable to figure it out. So first you have to accept that you don't know. And then I tell people, practically list all your fears. Make a list of all your externals, that your freedom, whatever you're afraid of. It's going to be different for each person. You have to identify your fears, all the externals that you think about all the time. Write them down and put them in a box or an envelope and put them to the sidelines, because even though they're relevant, they're not relevant when you're discovering your desire. They are relevant when you're making a decision.
This is really interesting, Anne, because like part of what you talk about is separating the desire from the decision. That was a fascinating thing that you wrote that I read. Yeah.
And the thing about your desire and your decision, they're separate and they always remain separate. It's when people merge them, that's when they get into mental gridlock. But once you discover your desire, that doesn't dictate your decision. And so that's why there's no danger in discovering your desire, because no one's going to make you do something you don't want to do. You can realize, I don't want to be a father for my personal reasons that I know. And for these other reasons, I'm going to make a decision to be a father, be the best father I can be, to be on board, not like, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But from a very conscious place of knowing who you are and why you're making that decision, your desire doesn't change.
So this is a really flippant example, but and metaphor, but like you could desire a chocolate bar for breakfast or whatever, but make the decision, no, I'm not going to do that for all these reasons and logic and all that kind of stuff. Similar kind of general idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes I'll work with someone or like a woman who is older, and she may realize after she did the work that she needed to do, I wanted to have been a mom by now. And it also happens with men. I actually wanted to have been a parent by now. It's not the decision that's best for me to follow through with now. And so because they choose, they go down a path of living child-free, it doesn't mean they didn't want to be a parent.
Yeah.
That doesn't change. But you grieve, you do whatever healing work you need to do, and you know why you're making the decision you're making. But people, I think, get scared that if they discover what their desire is, that means that's their decision. And they just always remain separate.
I think that's a very
idea.
Yeah, it's very comforting actually, because I think sometimes when I think about it, I'm scared to want it, because I feel like if I admit to myself that I want it, then I have to do it, because I feel like that's being honest with myself. But what you're saying is that's not necessarily the case.
Right. And sometimes I ask people, well, like, Hugh, do you also have kids?
Yeah, we've got 3 kids, yeah.
You have 3. And how many do you have, Josh?
2. Yeah,
2. And do you want a third?
I'm not sure. We're in indecision stage. Like, I'm not sure. Yeah, I love them. I absolutely love being a dad. It's my favorite thing in the world, and I couldn't love it anymore. But I got about 3 hours sleep last night, and I'm not sure how much longer I can do that in my life for. It's been a few years of it. So we're not in indecision mode at the moment on needing to make a decision, but it's something we'll have to talk about in the future for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for you, Hugh, do you want another?
God, no.
No.
No,
I hear some ambivalence there.
Do the course.
I speak on behalf of Penny and myself when I say, yeah, probably not. Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, but that's your desire, Hugh. Let's actually think about
I'm sorry. I know you're supposed to be asking the questions, but can I ask you something, Ryan?
Please.
Which is, when people contact me, I ask a couple of questions. Can I just ask you those questions?
Please.
Just give me your gut reaction, okay?
Yep.
There's no agenda. There's no right or wrong.
Yep.
Do you want to be a dad?
Is this a yes or no?
Whatever. It could be
Okay.
laughter.
Do I want to be a dad?
Shock.
Do I want to be a dad? Seems like something I should have thought about by now. Well, it's a really good direct question, because I don't not want to be a dad, but I don't want to be a dad all the time.
Do you wish you wanted to be a dad more than you do? Do you want to be a dad?
Yes.
Do you want to live a child-free life and have it be okay?
Yes.
Can you see yourself down either path if you knew it was what's right for you? If you really knew what was right for you, can you see yourself down either path?
Yes, the child-free life makes more sense in my brain when I picture them both. But then I feel like, well, is that just because I'm living that now? I can recognize that. So it's like when I put another pair of glasses on, everything looks wrong because they're not the glasses that I'm used to seeing myself in. So,
Right.
It makes more sense to see myself child-free. When I think about myself down the path with children, it's like, what are you doing? Why? Who do you think you are?
Right, but if you knew it's what you wanted, if you knew it was your truth that you wanted to be a dad, can you see it?
If I knew it was my truth, I don't
That
quite
you
understand.
wanted to be a dad, if you knew it's what you wanted.
Yeah. I mean, I can picture it, I guess, but it's
hard because you don't want it.
yeah.
But part of the series of these questions is really about helping you identify that you're trying to merge desire and decision. Mm-hmm. And that's the conundrum. Mm. And so the process really is about, you want to be a dad, but not all the time. And then, there's a million questions that go with that. But still, you're not going to figure out what to do from where you're standing. And going back to actually, Hugh's question, like, what are the practical steps? It's, after you identify your fears, your externals, put them to the sidelines, your partner, so you're not considering any of it, then you're going to do some internal work to see what are the unconscious recordings, what are the unresolved issues that you didn't even know were there. And that is a process of stream of consciousness writing, guided visualizations that are really designed to bring forward reactions. And in those reactions, there's information. What you need is new information. Rehashing what you know is not going to help. And so it is a series of exercises in some ways that invite some reactivity. And in that reactivity, you get to explore what's that about?
With all of your experience working with so many people and going through this process with so many people, is there any part of you that already knows what I should do? But obviously you can't tell me that. But is part of you go like,
I can tell you.
Yeah, I know where he'll land. If he does the course, I know where he'll land. Do you know, could you sense that?
It's not how my brain works.
Yeah.
And so I really believe that this is not a right or wrong, good or bad decision.
Yeah. That is a really helpful thing to hear, because I think with so many decisions, with pretty much every life decision we make, or not even life decisions, any decision, we're usually deciding between what's the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, I just don't see it that way.
Yeah, but I think that's where it's tricky for me, and I reckon a lot of other people, is that we're terrified of making the quote unquote wrong choice.
Right. Yeah, and regretting it.
Yeah.
But it is, if it's not right or wrong, good or bad, then what?
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Because,
yeah. Then what?
Sometimes I will be able to have a sense where someone's going to end up, but mostly I don't really think about it, because what I care is that they know themselves better, that they know what's right for them. Because I've seen everything. I've had people start at 90% yes and end up in no, or vice versa. Or someone who's certain they want to be a parent or a father. They do the course because they feel like, their partner did it and they want to do their due diligence. So they come out still wanting to be a father, but for completely different reasons, because now they know themselves better and they knew what was driving that yes originally. But now they still want to be a father, but for different reasons. But mostly I just want people to know what's right for themselves. Because honestly, anybody who decides to sign up for this course and use their financial resources to do it and their time to do it, I think if they decide to be a parent, probably going to be a pretty good parent.
Yeah.
But some people are very clear it is just not what they want to do with their life.
Yep. This is probably something that I should already know, but I don't. Do you have children?
So I do not have children, though one could say I have lots of children. I'm someone that wanted children, but through a series of events in my life, I got to a place where I actually decided not to have children. And I have never looked back, and I count my lucky stars every day.
That's so interesting. So do you mind if we talk about that for a little bit? Because
sure.
Because I would have I don't know why, I would have assumed, and this is just, I guess this is my pronatalism effect.
Yeah.
I would have assumed that you were doing what you do because you have kids, you see the value in children, and you want to help other people get to the same place, which is just completely my programming.
Exactly. And a lot of people think I have children because I love kids. I mean, my God, babies are amazing. And I have a lot of kids in my life because I have a very large family. So there's always a baby.
Yeah.
I actually thought I would have children growing up, but when I was younger, my fantasy was to adopt, because I think my passion comes from wanting children to feel loved. And there's lots of ways to do that. So it's sort of like my contribution is helping the next generation feel loved, because if their parents go through this course, they'll have a better understanding about how to raise them.
Incredible.
So that's where my passion is. And one of the reasons that I also chose not to have children is that my passion is about making a difference to the many instead of the one. And I don't think I could do both. Now, many people do both, and there are incredible parents out there making a difference to the many. I just know I couldn't do that. And so if I had a child, they would get everything from me, but I don't think I would be able to do both. And so in the way that I would want to. So that also played a part in my decision.
Did you write the course after you made your decision?
The course was created in 1991.
Okay.
And at that time, I wanted children. I assumed I'd have children. And I was younger than in my 30s. And without a doubt, I knew I would have children. I didn't know how, but I figured I would. But it took a long time to find a healthy relationship that I would want to do that in. And the short version is that I did meet someone, but after a few years, he died. And so we did not get to do that. And then I thought, well, I could be an older parent. I was okay with that. But after a while, it was just like, this is not the path I want to go down. And so I actually had a ritual where I had my own no baby shower, where I had, many people who love me write letters of the difference I made in their life. And I just made a very conscious decision that I'm going to take in all that love and make a conscious decision to go down a child-free life and not look back. And I never did. And I'm in my 60s now. And if I had a child when I thought I would have, I'd have like a 20-something now. That is not what I would want to be doing in my life right now.
Do you mind if I ask, and why? Why? Is that too personal of a question? Is why?
Oh, no. It's nothing too personal. Because I love my life, And I have nieces and nephews that I can play with anytime I want. But no, I want to write. I have more books I want to write. I want to teach more classes. I want to reach more people. I want to play pickleball. I want to play tennis. I want to play.
Pickleball is sweeping the nation, or it's sweeping America.
Is it?
Right.
Yeah. You don't have pickleball in Australia?
Not really, no.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm guessing it's on a computer.
No. It's like
Do you guys have table tennis or ping
yes.
pong?
Yeah.
So it's like that. Imagine standing on the ping pong table and playing.
It's a bit bigger
Standing
though,
on
isn't
the
it?
table.
So, but it's bigger.
Okay.
And it's not a table. It's essentially just a small tennis
it's a court. It's
Okay.
it's the same as a badminton court.
Okay.
And the badminton net is on the ground, and you have a paddle with like a wiffle ball.
And are you quite good at it, Anne?
I'm good enough to have fun. That's what's so great about it, is that it doesn't take long to be good enough at it to have fun.
Yeah.
I can't get my head out of this desired decision thing that you brought up before. I think it's so profound, because it feels like you can, once you identify the desire more specifically, very specifically, and I hope I'm not overanalyzing you, but it sounds like in what you said before that your desire was for children to feel loved. And then you worked out that you don't have to be a parent to do that, and you can actually have more effect in your work, throughout your work. So I imagine that for someone like you, Ryan, there's something in there, a form of desire around children that's there, but you haven't identified exactly what it is yet.
It's interesting what Anne just said, and I really resonate with it, which is because I do love children. And I think that's the part of me that I kind of like, well, I love kids. And then there's also the thing that a lot of people say, Anne, which you would hear a lot, which is people say, and it's obviously true to the person saying it, is that it's the best thing I've ever done. And then they'll often say, it's the best thing you'll ever do. And I can't help but that rings in my ears.
Okay, here's the thing about that. So you heard me just say I count my lucky stars every day that I didn't get pregnant when I was trying. However, let's say hypothetically, I did. And I did have a kid. Then I would be saying, I'm so glad I had a kid. I almost didn't.
Yeah.
So you can't go down both paths. If you get clear enough, you choose a path, at some point you're going to be on that path and you're going to say, this is amazing. I almost didn't go down this path. Mm-hmm. Let's say you go down the path of living a child-free life by choice, and you have a great life. And you're like saying, oh my God, I almost went down that other path. So I think that, are you going to commit to having a good life no matter what?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, let's say you decide at some point you're like, okay, Jem wants a kid. We decide, and I know that, I think in the episode she also doesn't know, but there's a class coming up in June. Anyway. But let's say you get close enough to a yes and you say, let's do it, Mm-hmm. And you're on your path and it's, not bad. You're having a good time. And then at some point, something isn't going as well as you would like. That's not the end of the story. It means, okay, we got to figure something else out here. I think it's reasonable for us to be happier or have more fun, or something is off here, either in our relationship because of having a child, or parenting isn't going well. So you get help. It's okay to figure out how to make it better. Mm-hmm. So just because something doesn't go well doesn't mean that's the end of the story.
Yes.
If your life isn't going well, then get help for it to go well.
I gotta say, I just feel like obliged to kind of just say what I'm thinking and feeling, because of the nature of what we're talking about. But for some reason, finding out that you haven't got children, and to see you. So you seem like I've just met you, but you seem like such a joyful person. In a lot of ways, for me at least, it validates the decision not to. Mm-hmm. Because I think what's really hard to find is examples of people who have chosen not to have children and are living a great full life. Yeah.
Right, and that's only because of pronatalism. Trust me, there are a lot of happy child-free people out there, child-free by choice.
Yeah.
And I say that because there's a lot of people who wanted to be parents and didn't get to be. But our society makes them invisible because of pronatalism, so you don't know. But there's plenty of happy child-free people out there. But the thing is, you will hear people like, oh, you don't know the love of to have your own child. You just don't know that kind of love. Well, I don't know about that. I don't have my own child, so I don't know that kind of love. But when I think about my nieces, I can't imagine loving them any more than I do. I mean, sometimes I think like, oh my God, my heart's going to pop out of my body. I love them so much. So I know what love is.
Yeah.
And I don't have to have my own child to know what love is.
That's really, there was one person who wrote in really soon after we released that episode, the To Breed or Not to Breed episode. And it was an incredible message. I wish I could remember her name. But she explained how she and her partner chose not to have children. And she's really happy she made that choice because she said she's got this incredible relationship with her nephews, her two nephews. And she said, I'm just so thankful that I didn't have my own children. It sounds strange, but I get it. I'm so thankful I didn't have my own children because I wouldn't have been able to have the relationship with my nephews if I had my own children.
It's so true. I've had my nieces say to me, I'm so glad you didn't have children because then you wouldn't have been able to be there for me in the way that you have always been there. We can spread ourselves thin, but at some point you just can't be there for everybody. But I can be there for my nieces and nephews.
You mentioned before that you've mentioned a couple of times that we live in a pro-natalist society. And a lot of us take it for granted, but why is that the case that we live in that kind of world?
Yeah, and I guess why and why do we feel shame off the back of that about
why is it so hard to talk about?
Yeah.
So I am not the expert to explain that, but pro-natalism goes back centuries, and it really is the message you should have children. You should raise children. You should want to do it, and you should do it, no questions asked. And so if everybody has that message, even if they don't buy into it, and you start questioning it, you're going to end up feeling like something's wrong with you. If you're taught directly and indirectly, this is the right thing to do. You are good if you do this. Therefore, if you don't do it, you are bad.
Yeah, it's almost like it feels like it's the honorable decision.
Yeah.
To have children.
And let's say you grew up knowing that you're going to have children because why not? Quote unquote, everyone does, which isn't true, but it seems that way. And you just do it. But there's a secret part inside of you that kind of wishes you didn't have to. You didn't really want to, but you can't say that out loud. And then you bump into your friend who's saying, I really don't know. Like she says it out loud. I really don't know if I want to have a child or not. She says that to the person who never was allowed to question it, but really wished she could have. So then she has a reaction, which is like, oh, don't think about it. It will be so great for you. It's great for me. Just do it. Like people say things because I think they're triggered in some way, because if someone has unexplored certainty and maybe at some point they felt ambivalent and then they talk to someone who feels they have a right to talk about their ambivalence, it's going to be triggering. And it could be unconsciously triggering. They may not be aware of it, but that's why I think people end up saying stupid things.
I think just on that, I've had after that episode, I had a lot of people get in contact with me and some friends, some people I don't know. But the friends who I spoke to who just, want nothing for the best for me. They love me and I love them and trust them. And one of the bits of advice that one of my friends gave me, she's got 2 children. She said, if you're not sure, then you should definitely do it. Like if you're even considering it, you should definitely do it. And I could kind of understand, because in her mind, she was looking at me and she was like, in my experience as a parent, I look at you and I think, well, one, in her words, she was like, you'd be great, you'd do a great job. And so just make the decision now, get it going as soon as possible. And she is, she's brilliant. I love her, and she wants me to be a parent because she thinks she loves being a parent, and she's like, you'll love it. You'll love it. That I feel like that happens a lot as well. I don't know what to do with that. It's like, okay, well,
Well, you probably will love it. I mean, you will have an audience. You'll have routines. I mean,
Hang on. Audience. Let's stick on that for a second there.
You'll
non-paying though. Non-paying audience.
They're also not the best audience, I would say.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's true. That would be the most heartbreaking thing.
Right. Dad, you suck.
Yeah.
No.
That'd be hard.
But I mean, it comes, who knows? The thing is, no one can know. You can't know. That's the thing, is you can't know what it will be like for you. Mm-hmm. And you have to accept that. You can know what you want it to be like. You can put everything in place for it to unfold in the way that you hope it will be, and trust that if it doesn't unfold that way, you'll have the wherewithal to figure out how to fine-tune it. It's a constant fine-tuning. Mm-hmm. It's not rigid. But you're only going to go down that path if you really discover that it's the decision you want to make.
Are you able to say, because I mean, I don't know, for some reason I sometimes think like about stats, and stats can kind of comfort me in some ways. Do you have any idea of like what percentage of people that went through your course make the decision to have kids versus not?
So I do not have stats because I often don't know.
Of course.
What people decide, because I help them get clear on their desire, because I believe once you're clear on that, navigating the decision is much easier.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Less,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But I often, a year later, will get a picture of a baby, or a year later, I'll get a picture of a dog, or I'll get a picture of a yacht, or I'll get a picture of something.
A yacht sounds good.
Yeah, people will let me know, what they decided to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yachts are expensive though, I guess, aren't they?
So the Vox.com article that you wrote, a wonderful article. I help people decide if they want to have kids. Here's my advice. There were 6 little steps or 6 little tips to get you started, and we've kind of touched on most of them. The first one being taking a designated break from the discussion, and if you're single, to stop ruminating about it or talking about it with others, and using that time to decide not to know what you want, what you're going to do. No more thinking one way. So we sort of talked about that. The second one, accept that indecision is more complex, and we've talked about that. The third one, stop trying to figure this out by making a pros and cons list. I feel like every single person who's trying to make this decision right now is making a pros and cons list. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm mentally screwing up the piece of paper with my pros and cons list and throwing it in the bin. Yes.
Making a pros and cons list is fantastic.
Unscrew it up.
And if you do it and you have your answer, great. But if you're doing it again and again and again, it's not working. In fact, it's functioning to keep the answer at bay, because you're caught in desire and decision. You're merging the two with a pros and cons list. But if you're doing that for the second or third time, you want to stop, because it's really just creating more anxiety. I mean, anxiety loves uncertainty. So when you're uncertain, your anxiety is just going to increase. And making a pros and cons list is going to make your anxiety increase.
Yep. So tip number 4, I'm really interested in this one as well. Make a list of 3 decisions that you've made because you knew in your gut it was the right decision for you.
Right, that's a good one. So let me ask Ryan.
What was your tip?
When you think about the life you've lived to date, what is a decision you have made on your behalf that you just felt really great about, or that you felt certain about. It's one decision that was right for you.
Can I think of one for you?
Yeah,
Please, I'm struggling.
Well, just to keep it relevant to this podcast, years ago I suggested to Ryan that we do a podcast together, and it wasn't a simple yes or no. It took you quite a few months to work out if you were going to do it or not.
That was the thing I was actually going to say.
Okay, sorry.
but please keep going.
No, that's it. You can do
cool,
it.
And so, Ryan, when you made that, you said yes, obviously.
Correct.
At some point,
Yep.
did you feel good about that? Yes, when you finally got there.
Yes, I did. I did actually. I did because I mean, that probably was merging desire and decision, I guess, as well, in that sense, where the reason I didn't want to do it was because I was like thinking, I've never done anything in the mental health world before. Who am I? I'm just a comedy person. I write jokes and things. So why should I be on a podcast about this? That was my inner voice telling me that I'm not good enough or I can't do it. But purely because of the support of Hugh and Jam, my girlfriend, telling me I should do it. It was a leap, but I felt comfortable in the leap. Yeah.
Okay. Can you think of I'm gonna go for a different one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one, but can you think of another decision you made that there was just no doubt in your mind that it was right for you? Or maybe being with Jam, I don't know your relationship.
There was definitely uncertainty in that as well. I feel like every decision that I make that requires some form of commitment long term, I really struggle with. And it often has nothing to do with the thing I'm deciding to do or the person I'm deciding to be with. It's exactly what I said before. It's the fear of locking in a life.
Right.
Or a thing that I'm then obliged to have to do for longer than I might want to do it. I might get to like a year and be like, oh, I don't want this anymore.
Right. And, I can ask you questions about that, but I'm not going to because it'll be too personal. But it doesn't have to relate to anybody else. But when you think about, I don't know if you went to school or you didn't go to school or why you're a comedian or whatever it is, like it could just be it doesn't have to be huge, but just and you'll know why I'm asking this when we get there, but what's a decision you've made in your life that you knew was right for you? And it could be where you went to dinner last night.
Okay, I've got it. I know it. So when I was 22 or something, I was set to go on this big, classic kind of gap year-esque, go to Europe with backpacking around. I'd finished my uni course, and I was going to go away. And then an opportunity came up for an audition for a TV show. And the audition was going to happen 2 days after I was supposed to leave. So if I chose to go on this big trip that I'd already had the going away party for and made a big deal about going to everyone, if I went on that, I'd be giving up the audition, which was the first chance at a paying job in the industry that I dreamt of being in. And so I had to make a choice. Do I stay or do I go? It was a real sliding doors sort of situation. And I chose to not go on the trip, and I chose to stay and do the audition, even though there was no promise of anything coming from it at all.
But it was right. It was right for you.
I knew it. Yeah, I knew it.
Yeah.
Even though I'd planned on the trip and I was excited about the trip, I knew that I had to stay and take the chance. Yeah, I knew it.
Right. And so just notice what that feels like in your body.
Mm-hmm.
It's a physical sensation.
Yes.
And so I think it's reasonable and it's your birthright to have that kind of certainty when it comes to deciding about this issue. And so I ask people that question to find something so that they know what to reach for. Now, I think that's reasonable, but I don't think you can get there until you do the work to really look at, the fears you have, fear of commitment, or what if you change your mind, or, that goes back to somewhere. There's a reason for that. But you have to first do the work to uncover your desire so that when you make a decision, you can feel like that.
That is so helpful, Anne. I mean, I know it's just the tip of the 12-week iceberg, and I really want to do the course, because even just what you said there, that little exercise is quite profound for me, actually, because thinking about how I felt in that decision, there was even though both choices could have, I often think about the choice, because if I went on that trip, who knows what would have come from that trip? Like that's a whole nother life that might have happened and could have been better. I don't know. But in that moment, not knowing what was ahead, I knew for sure. I knew immediately what the right thing to do was.
Tip number 6. Sorry, I really like your tip. Sorry,
it's good.
I do love a good list. Tip number 6: do some good old. I put good in there. Do some old-fashioned stream of consciousness writing with these prompts. I won't read out all of them, but I do like the first. I do like the first few. So, I've always thought that by now my life would look like. That's a really good one.
That's great.
So here's the thing. And what I tell people is don't go for long walks on the beach thinking about this, because that's looping. Your mind will loop. Mm-hmm. That's the value of stream of consciousness writing, is that once it's on the paper, then more comes forward. But thinking goes around. So I encourage people, don't think, don't study, just see what comes to mind. And then you go back and you read that writing, and something's going to be there that you didn't even know you were going to write.
I mean, that will definitely work for me, because that is how I write when I'm writing comedy or whatever I'm writing. Because it's so true. You have an idea in your head, and until you get it down on paper, you're just going to keep coming back to that one thing. You got to get it on paper to get past it. Yeah, it's so true.
And here's another wonderful prompt for this process. I really love this one. Make the decision of yes to having/raising a baby, and live with that decision for 5 days. During that time, write daily about how you feel about the decision you are pretending to have made. Don't bargain with the decision. The more you can buy into having made the decision, the more information you receive about yourself. And then the next exercise is to do the exact opposite. So the next 5 days, you've made a decision to not have a child. I think that's a wonderful activity.
I wonder if it's telling that I can't wait for the second 5 days.
Right. And so that's what happens. People will do that. And that was one of the other exercises that
the first 5 days I'm going to be like, didn't sleep again last night. No, I know there's plenty of probably good things about having a kid too. So I hear.
But it is, but it would use, I've made the decision for you. You're not going to be a father. Mm-hmm. You don't have to like it, but you have to pretend that it's true.
To accept it, yep.
And then you live 5 days. And the reason it's 5 days, because if it's 5 minutes, you already do that, go back and forth. That doesn't help. It could, even if it's 48 hours. But in there, if you can convince your mind that this is it, all kinds of feelings are going to come forward. And that's where you get the new information. But just because you're like, woohoo, party, I'm so excited about this, that doesn't mean that you should live a child-free life. Like your reaction actually is not an indicator.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Let's say someone does the exercise of today you've decided to live a child-free life, and they just bust out in tears because that's just not what they want. They can't believe it, and that reaction is so big that they could mistakenly think, oh, this must mean I want a child. What it means is there's some big loss. Something is trying to come forward that's a big reaction, and it's worth exploring what that reaction might be connected to. It's not an indicator that you should or shouldn't have children.
Fascinating.
But these exercises are so powerful. They bring feelings forward. I'm always letting people know you want to invite all that reactivity, but it's not an indicator whether or not you should have children. That's put to the sidelines. You made a decision to not know. But it does mean that something is trying to come forward that needs your attention. We don't know exactly what it's about.
And I imagine with the people that you're working with who are stuck in a loop of indecision would more often than not have some very big emotions about one of these two decisions? Because that would
Right.
be one of the things stopping them from having clarity.
That is true, but sometimes people feel nothing,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and that's really
Yeah.
confusing
Yeah.
to them, because what is that nothing about? But it is about something.
Wow. I'm so excited for you to do this.
Yeah.
I assume you are going to.
Well, yeah, I think I will.
I mean, I've always felt for you.
Just to hang out with Anne again.
I have always felt for you, whatever decision you make, whatever happens, it'll feel like the right decision. I really feel like that. At any stage, it'll feel like this was the right decision. So I feel like,
Well, and I have to agree with you. Not that I know you, but you seem like someone who doesn't want to make a decision until it's right for you.
Yeah, definitely. But I think not until this very conversation did I think that I agree with you. Like until now, and you got me to do that exercise of thinking about that decision that I was so clear about. Because when I think about that decision, I don't know, but I'm sure whatever choice I made then, whether I went to Europe, didn't do the audition, I might have missed out on all the stuff that I have done in this life. But what I might have experienced is something completely different. I might have got a job in Berlin doing something, and I might have lived there for 20 years and met these incredible, I don't know, like who knows what would have happened.
And
But
that's what I
would
was
have been
saying
great.
before. Right. And that's what I was saying before. You can't have both worlds. Like if you went down that path, something great would have happened. And you would have, likely, and you would have said, oh, I almost didn't do this trip. And so I just think it's not right or wrong, good or bad, better or worse.
There certainly is, as you were saying before with the pronatalism, there's a shame attached to not knowing. And these discussions can be really hard for people to talk about. Having done this for so long, have you noticed a shift in sort of the public dialogue about this? Has it changed? Has it gotten easier or worse or harder to talk about these things? Or
Well, this is what I noticed when Denise and I started doing this work in 1991. The age group reaching out to us, they were older, late 30s, early 40s. These days, I'll have someone who might be 28 or 29, even 30, where it seems like there's more permission, let's say for millennials, to be practical, and they just want to know. Like, they don't care what someone thinks. They just want to know what's right. And so it seems that there's more permission for younger people to explore this issue. And there's less shame. But there's still plenty of shame and judgment.
it seems to link to that thing you said earlier, which I thought you said so beautifully, that you have a right to feel that certainty about this issue. And I think a lot of people wouldn't think that's the case, that there's something wrong with them if they don't. Yeah.
Right. I think it's everyone's birthright to know what's true for them. And that if they don't, there's a real good reason, and it's not their fault. And so it's worth uncovering what that reason is, but they shouldn't be blamed for not knowing.
Amazing.
Well, the book, for those of you who are interested, Motherhood, Is It For Me, was co-authored with Denise Carlini. And it's also, you've also come up with a program together, which it sounds like Ryan will be doing.
And we'll put links to everything, like the Vox article and the book and the course and your website, and every link we can get our hands on will be in the show notes. So, yeah. And this has been, I'm sure for many people listening, but particularly for me, thank you so much for coming on the show, but also for talking about this, because, yeah, it was really, really helpful for me, genuinely. So thank you.
Well, I'm so glad. I mean, I could hang out for hours talking about it. I just love talking about it.
Yeah.
And thank you for being so welcoming. You guys are great.
Thanks, Anne.
It's been a wonderful
Thank you, Anne.
chat. Yeah.
And I really want to know if Josh is going to have another kid.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe I'll do
You
the
can
course too. Yeah.
I really
Again,
want
just
to
hang out with you more.
I really want to come to San Francisco and play pickleball with you.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I really want to come to Australia, so I'll bring my.
We don't have pickleball
net.
here.
Right?
Bring your net.
That's
yeah.
all right. I'll bring the net and all the stuff. You just need a driveway.
We got them.
We got them.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Anne. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
Anne.
you, guys.
The Imperfects is not a licensed mental health service and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, treatment, or assessment. The advice given in this episode is general in nature, but if you're struggling, please see a healthcare professional or call Lifeline on 131114. The Imperfects is hosted and produced by Hugh Van Cuylenberg, Ryan Shelton, and Josh Van Cuylenberg. Our executive producer is Bridget Northeast. This episode is filmed by Andy Poole and edited by George Martin.